Hello, I'm doing my informative speech on diabetes. I chose diabetes because most people don't know how important diabetes is. Okay, so my two sites for the information I'm about to read is from Medical News Today and Wikipedia. Okay, diabetes is a long-term condition that causes high blood sugar levels. In 2013, it was estimated that over 382 million people throughout the world had diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is when the body does not produce insulin. Approximately 10% of all diabetes cases are type 1. A few things about type 1 diabetes is that the body does not produce insulin. Some people may refer to this type as insulin dependent diabetes, juvenile diabetes, or early onset diabetes. People usually develop type 1 diabetes over their 40th year, often in early adulthood or teenage years. Type 1 diabetes is nowhere near as common as type 2 diabetes. Approximately 10% of all diabetes cases are type 1. Patients with type 1 diabetes will need to take insulin injections for the rest of their life. They must also ensure proper blood glucose levels by carrying out regular blood tests and following a special diet. Between 2001 and 2009, the prevalence of type 1 diabetes among the under 20s in the USA rose 23%. Type 2 diabetes is when the body does not produce enough insulin for proper function. Type 2 diabetes is also called, well, it was once called non-insulin dependent diabetes. It's also the most common form of diabetes, affecting 90% to 95% of the 26 million Americans today. So that's 90 to 95% of 26 million Americans have type 2 diabetes. That's a lot. Some people may be able to control their type 2 diabetes by losing weight, following a healthy diet, doing plenty of exercise, and monitoring the blood glucose levels. However, type 2 diabetes is typically a progressive disease. It gradually gets worse, and the patient will probably end up having to take insulin, usually in a tablet form. Overweight and obese people have a much higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those with a healthy body weight. Being overweight, physically inactive, and eating the wrong foods all contribute to our risk of developing type 2 diabetes. The risk for developing type 2 diabetes is also greater as we get older. Experts say that as we age, we tend to put on weight and become less physically active, which is true. We do stop doing a lot once we start getting older, even myself. Okay, and I'm going to talk about gestational diabetes. I talked about type 1, type 2, and I'm talking about gestational diabetes. Gestational diabetes it normally affects females during pregnancy. This type affects females during pregnancy. Some women have very high levels of glucose in their blood, and their bodies are unable to produce enough insulin to transport all of that glucose into their cells, resulting in progressively rising levels of glucose. Diagnosis of gestational diabetes is made during pregnancy. The majority of gestational diabetes patients can control their diabetes with exercise and diet. Between 10% to 20% of them will need to take some kind of blood glucose controlling medications. Undiagnosed or uncontrolled gestational diabetes can raise the risk of complications during childbirth. The baby may be bigger than he or she should be. Scientists from the National Institute of Health and Harvard University found that women whose diets before becoming pregnant were high in animal fat and cholesterol had a higher risk for gestational diabetes compared to their counterparts whose diets were low in cholesterol and animal. The most common diabetes symptoms include frequent urination, intense thirst and hunger, weight gain, unusual weight loss, fatigue, cuts and bruises that do not heal, male sexual dysfunction, numbness, and tingling in the hands and feet. If you have type 1 and you follow a healthy eating plan, do adequate exercise, and take insulin, you can lead a normal life. Type 2 patients need to eat healthy, be physically active, and test their blood glucose. They may also need to take oral medication and or insulin to control blood glucose levels. So type 2s, you have to do a little bit more, sounds like to me. As the risk of cardiovascular disease is much higher for a diabetic, it is crucial that blood pressure and cholesterol levels are monitored regularly. As smoking might have a serious effect on cardiovascular health, diabetics should not be smoking. Hypoglycemia, low blood glucose, can have a bad effect on the patient. Hyperglycemia, when blood glucose is too high, can also have a bad effect on the patient. Complications. Some of the complications from diabetes is high blood pressure, ketones and ketoacidosis, skin complications, eye complications, hypoglycemia, and that's all I got. And ketones and ketoacidosis is a serious condition that can lead to diabetic coma, passing out for a long time, or even death. Some of the skin complications will be like the styes, infections of the glands of the eyelid, the boils, infections of hair follicles, carbuncles, deep infections of the skin and the tissue underneath, and infections around the nails. Hypoglycemia is a condition characterized by abnormally low blood glucose. Some of the signs is hunger, nervousness, shakiness, perspiration, dizziness or lightheadedness, sleepiness, and confusion. If it's left untreated, it may actually lead to unconsciousness. Hypoglycemia can be treated by a glucose tablet or just drinking a little bit of juice. It may also be treated with an injection of glucagon if the person is unconscious or unable to swallow. Some more signs of hypoglycemia is shakiness, nervousness, sweat and chills, clamminess, irritability or impatience, confusion, rapid fast heartbeat, lightheadedness, dizziness, hunger, nausea, sleepiness. So as you can tell, it has a whole lot of different signs for hypoglycemia. Okay, and I have my 10 facts that I'm going to say about diabetes. I got these from American Diabetes Association and World Health Organization. There is an emerging global epidemic of diabetes that can be traced back to rapid increase in overweight, obesity, and physical inactivity. Total deaths from diabetes are projected to rise by more than 50% in the next 10 years. Most notably, they are projected to increase by over 80% in upper middle income countries. Type 1 diabetes is characterized by a lack of insulin production, and type 2 diabetes results from the body's ineffectiveness use of insulin. Type 2 diabetes is much more common than type 1 diabetes and accounts for around 90% of all diabetes worldwide. That's 90% type 2 worldwide. Reports of type 2 diabetes in children were previously rare, have increased worldwide. In some countries, it accounts for almost half of newly diagnosed cases in children and adolescents. A third type of diabetes is gestational diabetes. This type is characterized by hyperglycemia or raised blood sugar, which is first recognized during pregnancy. In 2005, listen to this, in 2005, 1.1 million people died from diabetes. In 2005, 1.1 million people. That's a lot of people. The full impact is much larger because although people may live for years with diabetes, their cause of death is often recorded as heart disease or kidney failure. 80% of diabetes deaths are now occurring in low and middle income countries. Lack of awareness about diabetes combined with insufficient access to health services can lead to complications such as blindness, amputation, and kidney failure. Diabetes can be prevented though. 30 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity on most days and a healthy diet can drastically reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So diabetes is very common. Little walk, little exercise, eating a little bit better can definitely keep you from having diabetes. I chose diabetes because I'm diabetic. And I know how hard it is, and I know that I did not take it seriously in the beginning. So I just wanted to touch on diabetes, state some facts, and maybe it'll teach somebody and just make them a little more serious about it, because I had to teach myself and I'm still learning about diabetes because it's very important, and diabetes is killing people. You can die from kidney failure, the tingling in your feet, the blurred vision. I mean, I've done experienced all this because I didn't even know in the beginning, so I was near death. Hope you enjoy, you guys, my informative speech on diabetes. I hope you got something out of it. Have a good day.